Imagine waking up every single morning, stepping outside your own home, and realizing you couldn't even use your own driveway. Not because of a broken gate, not because of repairs, but because other people, your very own neighbors, decided your driveway was their personal parking lot. This wasn't just a one-time thing. It wasn't an accident. It became a pattern. And the people doing it weren't random strangers. They were members of the Homeowners Association, the very group that was supposed to protect neighborhood order and property rights. Now, most people would try talking it out. They'd leave notes on the cars, maybe knock on a few doors, or file complaints. But what happens when every polite attempt gets ignored? What happens when your own HOA, the group that should be standing up for you, decides your problem isn't worth their time? That's exactly what happened here. The story begins with frustration, but it ends with something so bold and unforgettable that it left the entire neighborhood in shock. Because when HOA members continued parking in this man's driveway, even after countless warnings and complaints, he did something they never expected. He legally arranged for those cars to be towed, then organized a full-blown auction right in front of everyone. And yes, he sold those cars to the highest bidders. This wasn't just about parking anymore. This was about standing up against arrogance, entitlement, and abuse of power. It was about one person saying, "Enough is enough. If you won't respect me, then you're going to learn the hard way." The auction wasn't just a petty act of revenge. It was a masterstroke in turning the tables, using the very system that was being ignored against the people who thought they were untouchable. By the time the story was over, HOA members who once felt above the rules were suddenly scrambling to get their property back, facing embarrassment and financial loss in front of the very neighbors they had disrespected. What makes the story so gripping is the sheer audacity of it all. Most people wouldn't dare go that far. Most people would just keep complaining, keep getting angry, or eventually give up. But not here. This homeowner knew his rights, knew the law, and decided to play the game smarter than anyone else expected. So, how exactly did he pull it off? How did he go from being ignored and disrespected to standing tall at his own driveway auction, watching the very cars that blocked him get sold off one by one? This is the story of patience running out, of clever thinking, and of sweet, undeniable justice that it all started with small annoyances. At first, it was one car left overnight in his driveway without permission. The owner thought it was just a harmless mistake. But then it happened again and again until it became clear it wasn't a mistake. Neighbors, especially members of the HOA board, had started treating his driveway like an overflow parking lot whenever they had guests or didn't feel like walking a few extra steps to their own homes. He tried to solve it peacefully. He left notes on windshields, politely reminding them that it was private property. He even knocked on doors and spoke directly with some of them. The responses he got were shocking. Some brushed him off with, "It's just for a little while, what's the big deal?" Others were downright dismissive, saying things like, "You've got space and nobody else is using it." Imagine being told you don't really need your own driveway. When politeness didn't work, he turned to the HOA. After all, they were supposed to enforce community rules. But instead of support, he got indifference. The HOA board, made up of the very same people parking in his driveway, claimed they didn't see it as a violation worth addressing. They told him it wasn't a priority and suggested he just be a good neighbor. In other words, they wanted him to accept being disrespected in his own home. That was the turning point. If the HOA wasn't going to help, he would take matters into his own hands. He researched the local property and towing laws, learning exactly what rights he had. To his satisfaction, he discovered that any vehicle parked on his property without permission could legally be towed at the owner's expense. Not only that, but if the vehicle went unclaimed after a certain period, it could be sold at auction. So he set a plan in motion. The next time someone parked in his driveway, he called a towing company immediately. The cars were hauled away one by one, leaving their owners furious. At first, they thought he was bluffing. They stormed over, demanding their cars back. But when they saw the towing receipts and the legal paperwork backing him up, they realized he was completely within his rights. The real fireworks began when the cars weren't reclaimed in time. According to the law, he now had the authority to auction them off. And that's exactly what he did. He didn't just quietly sell them either. He turned it into a neighborhood event. Flyers were put up, neighbors were invited, and when the day came, people gathered with curiosity and excitement. The very cars that had once blocked his driveway were now lined up, ready to go to the highest bidder. One by one, the vehicles were sold. Some went for a few $100s, others for thousands. The homeowners who had once arrogantly dismissed him now stood red-faced in the crowd, watching strangers drive away in their cars. Their pride was shattered, their wallets hit hard, and their reputations ruined. The man didn't gloat. He didn't shout or rub it in. He simply conducted the auction calmly, letting the consequences speak louder than any words ever could. News of the incident spread quickly, not just within the neighborhood, but across nearby communities. People were stunned that someone had actually gone through with it. Many admired him for standing his ground. Others whispered in disbelief that HOA members, who usually acted like enforcers of the rules, had been beaten at their own game. After that day, things changed permanently. Nobody dared park in his driveway again. In fact, people went out of their way to be polite, offering apologies and even small favors to make up for the past. The HOA, embarrassed by the scandal, finally started enforcing rules properly. They could no longer ignore him, and they certainly couldn't afford to let another incident like that happen. What makes the story so powerful is that it's not just about cars or parking. It's about respect. It's about the importance of knowing your rights and not letting others trample over them. When he sold those cars, he wasn't just getting rid of a nuisance. He was sending a message that arrogance and entitlement have consequences. And in the end, that driveway auction became more than just a neighborhood spectacle. It became a legend, a reminder that sometimes, when people push too far, justice doesn't come quietly. Sometimes, it arrives with an auctioneer's gavel and a crowd of bidders.